Today I'm going to talk with you guys about economics. I went to a conference a couple weeks ago and I learned about economics. A lot of great stuff about cryptocurrency, the current state about our economy, as well as other stuff like the future of work. Super exciting stuff, so stay tuned to learn all about that. So economics is a topic that a lot of people like talking about, especially right now.
This was like the main topic in the workshops, or?
I mean, it's called the Acton Institute, and off their website, their main mission is to promote a free and virtuous society characterized by individual liberty and sustained by religious principles. So we have people from all over the world: Italy, Brazil, China.
Oh, wow.
People literally in China that some of their people that they were supposed to come with couldn't come because they're in prison because of the religious practices that they're doing. And
the Uyghurs or something?
the Uyghurs, all that stuff that's
wow.
going on, which is a whole other topic that we could talk about. So we got people from all over the world.
But this is why we didn't have the podcast last week, because you were there.
Yes, I was there in Grand Rapids, Michigan, the great state of Michigan. That when I was there, automatically I missed LA in Orange County because there was no
It's
people.
not the same.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
There's no people. It's very empty. I felt very sad, but I guess some people
But
enjoy that.
today I had to drive like from the office to here and took an hour. I kind of wish there was not as much people.
Yeah, but trust me, I missed traffic when I was there. It's like, where's
Why?
the next car?
Because with your Porsche, especially your car, don't you want less traffic so you can really?
True. You hate it when you have it, but when it's not there, you're like, dang, where's everybody?
Comment down below if you like traffic, because I don't like traffic.
Yeah, no, actually, no, I don't like traffic.
Yeah.
But yeah, economics. We talked about, like I said, the future of work, current state of our economy, cryptocurrencies, or the economics of digital currencies. So I'm going to talk about all those things, breaking it down point by point with the workshops that I went to, the top workshops that I enjoyed from this conference.
Yeah, because I personally didn't go to the workshop, so I'm actually learning today.
Yeah, all of you guys are learning, just like he's going to be learning. You're all learning. If you have any questions or comments, anything, we're on the comment section, consistently checking, replying, whatever questions you guys have. And so it was a 4 or 5 day conference, great conference, a really amazing, lot of great speakers. The first day, the first topic that I want to talk about is there was this workshop, but it was titled Thinking in an Economic Way. And something that one of the speakers said that really hit me was that entrepreneurs are not the most knowledgeable people, but rather the most innovative and adaptable of society.
So they're more doers.
They're doers. And what do people do? They follow the doers, right? The followers follow the doers. They're not dreamers. They're not just dreamers. They're doers. So basically, starting off with economics, entrepreneurship and all that is the importance of innovating and not focusing so much on being the most knowledgeable person. You see a problem? Let's come up with a solution. And this wasn't not there, but like you could talk about the Elon Musk, the Jeff Bezos of the world. They're maybe not the most.
But I feel like
They're knowledgeable.
they're both a little doers and also like techie, and
Yeah, they're knowledgeable in what they know, but maybe they're not knowledgeable in other things. But the thing about them that sets them apart was that they're very innovative. Jeff Bezos started selling books online. I mean, people thought he was stupid.
you probably seen that video where he's driving that Honda Accord.
Yeah.
And they're all
It's worth
like,
a
"Why are
couple
you driving
$1
this?"
or something like that.
Or his desk setup, which was just like a broken wood slab that he just put together. It's pretty nuts, because I think he was worth $1 million during that time. And you would think someone worth $1 million would be nice desk, at least a decent looking car, but he was like, "Nope, I'm gonna be super frugal."
Yeah, and it was like in a garage, I think, or something like that. But
Oh wow.
yeah, he was innovative in the sense he didn't care about selling the books. It was more about the platform he was selling them on.
The data that it was collecting.
All of that.
Yeah, like who buys books at Amazon? I don't think anyone buys books anymore. Well, it probably is.
Yeah,
It probably is, but majority, like I do 90% of my shopping at Amazon.
me too.
I don't even go to the store unless I
Everything.
really need it.
From anywhere from gifts for a baby shower, for a wedding.
Yeah, even gift cards.
I bought something for my car, like
I
electronic. There's so much stuff. Everything on Amazon. This is not an ad for Amazon, but you can get anything on there. So he changed our life in every aspect because he was being innovative. Same thing with Elon Musk. He's for
PayPal,
human race, right?
Tesla,
Electric
SpaceX.
vehicles. What's the number one selling vehicle right now? The
Tesla.
Model 3, Tesla. You see it everywhere, right? So these are two very innovative people. And there's a story of this guy. His name's Carlos Castro. So we're called Avance Latino because we're out there to try to empower the Latino community, right? Because that's the community we're in LA and East LA. But predominantly, it's mostly Latinos. Although we serve everyone, but that's our niche audience, I guess you would say. So there's this story.
Well, that's because we're Latinos,
We're Latinos
so we
too,
relate
yeah.
to them.
Yeah, so it's a great way to be able to connect, right? So this guy called Carlos Castro, because you might be watching and you're thinking, okay, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, I'm not gonna make an electric vehicle. I'm not gonna do the next Amazon. Okay, but what about this guy, Carlos Castro? He's an Hispanic entrepreneur. For him, it wasn't easy because the first time he moved to the U.S., he did it illegally, right? Like most of our parents, he jumped the border. He was deported back to El Salvador. He tried again, and he could finally legally move again. It took him years. And that's when he first started his entrepreneurship career. And he's the founder of the supermarket that's called Todos Supermarket that first opened in Washington, D.C. And to this day, he currently has more than 30 supermarkets. And the reason why it's so successful is because he caters specifically to the Hispanic community. So this is an example of an entrepreneur that maybe wasn't the most knowledgeable. I mean, supermarket, that's already an idea that's made, but he thought, how can I innovate it? How can I make it better?
Or he probably was living in his neighborhood and was like, there's
From
no
El Salvador, yeah.
there's no market that has all the stuff that I miss from back home.
Exactly. And he was thinking about that, like, oh man, and there's so many Salvadorians, Guatemalans, Central Americans, or whatever. So being an entrepreneur, if you're watching, it's not just about making the next Amazon or Tesla. It could be something as simple as fixing a simple solution like a supermarket for Hispanics.
That's the perfect example of a doer. He's just thinking of a solution for himself personally. He probably was like, hey, I missed this stuff. Why don't I go out there and go do it?
Yeah. He was going to Target and Walmart and he's like, they have like a little section. If you go to Target, it says like international or something.
And it always says, it didn't even say international because he's Salvadorian, right? It always says Mexican food. He's probably like, what?
I know.
Come on.
So and it's a little section. It's like the dog food is a bigger section than the Latinos, right? Section or international. Because not just Latinos, it's Asian. It's a bunch of stuff that they have right there. International. So that's smart. You connect the dots, and I mean, obviously, it's not easy to open a supermarket, but it's an easy idea if you really think about it. It doesn't really. Oh, okay. Yeah. But it was innovative, and he wasn't the most knowledgeable.
Yeah, it's the same thing here at Avanza Latino. We started this because we grew up. We didn't know anything about finances. We didn't know like how to prepare for college. What do we needed to know before getting started college? And we saw how not only we were affected by it, but our friends and everyone that we know didn't know. And we're like, shoot, how can we help? And we just started doing it. We didn't know everything. We just started doing it, and we learned along the way. And
we did random stuff at first, right? But now we're niching down, financial education and possibly working more with schools, right?
And that's to be honest, that's my favorite part because we're getting to the root of the problem, which is there in the high school.
You fix them there, they're set for life, literally. So very great way to start this conversation today, thinking of economics and entrepreneurial mindset, which you can apply not just to owning and starting a business, but even in your workplace, you can change something up. There's that famous story of the hot Cheeto guy, the guy that came up with hot Cheetos. He was a janitor and he thought of the idea. He was working within the company, and now look at him. He's speaking. He's at so many places. He's worth millions of dollars.
Didn't you?
Not personally, but he was at
a gala or something?
At an event, yeah. So it's like, you don't have to just do it in a way. So you're starting a business. Maybe you innovate something at your job and you get paid for it because of it, and you just change the whole job or something, the whole company or whatever.
Yeah.
Think of innovative ways.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't have to think about the crazy idea, just like how you were saying, a supermarket.
For Latinos, that's
exactly. So it sounds so simple, but, he's killing it, and now I'm pretty sure
30 stores, 30 supermarkets.
Yeah. I personally have never been to. What is it called? Todo?
It's in the East Coast, that's why.
Okay.
Yeah. Todos, it's called Todos, let me see, it's called Todos Supermarket.
Ours is like what, Northgate Market?
Northgate,
Super.
El Super, yeah. There's a couple of those. So they probably had the same concept too. So great way to start, talking about innovation and all that. Now, another thing I want to transition into is the economics of digital currencies. So when you think of digital currencies, you think of Bitcoin, you think of, cryptocurrencies, right? Before we define that and talk more about that, let's talk about money itself, cash, the characteristics of money. Because in order to talk about digital currencies, we have to talk about cash, money.
Yeah.
What is it? It's the most liquid commodity. Meaning, when I say liquid, it's physical. You don't need to do anything. Like, for example, real estate. In order to transition that into money, you gotta
Takes
go get a
days.
real estate agent. You gotta go sell it. It takes a process. But cash, it's fast right away. That's why it's liquid. It's a medium of exchange. It holds value, right? We use it every day to exchange for a
People
service
want
or
it.
product, right? Now, there's two forms of digital currency. There's the e-money, which is your debit card, and then credit card, which we use every day. Most of us, if you really think about it, if the dollar would disappear, would be just fine because it's like, think of the money you have in your bank,
Yeah, like
and you pay someone, right?
I rarely use cash unless I need to.
Yeah, I mean, it's
90%
really
of
rare.
everything
It's
is
really
credit.
rare.
Yeah.
I know more the immigrant community. Like we serve a lot of the immigrant community. I think they're the last population of people that uses cash, or like boomers, older generation.
Yeah, because it's crazy that there's some people that still don't even have banks. They keep it all in themselves.
Literally under their beds. But think of that number they have in your bank account, right? If you really think about it, you that's not real in the sense where like it never even existed. If you got paid direct deposit from your company, then you send it for investments or you send it to pay bills, then you never actually really had it. It never really existed. It was never a real thing. So it's e-money, right? Now there's this thing called virtual currencies. When you think of Bitcoin, Ethereum, even the Dogecoin, right?
Doge,
All of those,
Shiba.
right? They are a digital representation of money, but they have no legal tender status. It's not backed up by anything. It's not like, for example, with cash, it's all connected to a whole government, the U.S. economy, right? From the Federal Reserve, they print the money. But the digital currency has no legal tender status. That is why not everyone accepts it. It's up to them if they want to accept it or not, because then they can convert it to cash, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I'm going to talk about, right now, I'm going to break down the potential benefits of digital currencies. According to this workshop that I went to, all these are experts in the fields of economics, of everything has to do with economics, and the potential risk. And I'm curious to know what you think when I break it down. So let's talk about potential benefits of, let's just say we enter a world 10, 15 years from now where Bitcoin or any sort of cryptocurrency, it doesn't have to be just Bitcoin, but that's what everyone knows, is being used for day-to-day exchange and whatever, right? Number one, the first thing the professor or the expert was saying is that with digital currencies, you have improved trust in transactions.
What does that mean?
Basically, that means it's all visible for everyone to see, right? When you make a transaction, it's all visible for everyone to see. It's a lot more trust compared to people that has to do with cash and all that. And people trust credit cards, debit cards, all of that, especially with a credit card, because with credit cards, I mean, if someone tries to scam you or fraud you, you can call your bank, they cancel the transaction, blah, you're secure.
If it's a credit card, I feel like they call you first.
They call you.
Yeah.
But with cash, you get scammed. That's lost. It's gone forever, basically.
Yeah.
If you got scammed, your money is gone forever.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. With digital currencies, it's
More security.
more secure, more trust. If you as a business owner, if you have all this cash, you're more likely to be robbed. But if it's all digital, what are they going to rob you? Like my post on Facebook, I'm going to force you to like it, right? What are they going to do, right?
Yeah. It's also better for business because you could track transactions a lot easier opposed to cash. You got to go like, okay, how much did he give me for what? It's just there. It's like boom, 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 all catalog.
It's improved trust in transactions. It's good. Now, the second, when you kind of already talked about it, it's a faster and cheaper way for banking payments, right?
Yeah.
Way faster to make something digital online. Boom, fast. Send something to someone. Zelle. That's an amazing thing that just came out, that it's like almost forcing everyone else to be like, damn, we can't charge anyone anymore to transfer because Zelle's free.
Well, even text messages nowadays, Apple Pay.
Apple Pay is free.
Yeah.
So it's like, they give you the option though. You have to be patient. They say send it in 2 or 3 days for free, or send it now for like a couple cents. It's Apple, I think, right? When you
Apple's directly.
No, when you transfer from your Apple Wallet to your bank, you have the decision. So they're testing your patience, right? Zelle, you don't choose. If someone sends you the money, you already...
It's direct.
It goes direct from your bank, So improved trust in transactions, faster and cheaper banking payments. Number 3 is, this is a huge one, especially for developing countries, is expanding access to the unbanked. That's what digital currencies can do. It can expand access to people that don't have bank accounts, saving accounts, checking accounts, not just here in the US, which is a huge number. We know that because we deal with, we work in the community. We understand there's a huge lack of trust in the banking system here in the country, but even in Africa and Mexico, Salvador, and et cetera. so much
Yeah.
people that don't have banking.
Well, yeah, because it's like the dollar is based on what the U.S. government, what the economy does, and if your money currency is in Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, and the government is not doing a good job, that value. What is Venezuela right now? Like 400%, 300,
Something like that,
crazy. So
yeah.
it's like, why would you want to hold your money on something that can fall like that versus something like cryptocurrencies where it's out of people's hand and it's something digitally that has no influence on what happens in the world.
Which that is the next point, discipline
wow.
in the central banks, right? With what I mean by that, with digital currencies, we're going to be way more strict, more disciplined. And right now, what do? We just print money. But with digital currencies, the Federal Reserve isn't going to be the one that decides these things. Or,
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, we don't know what the future would look like, but it would help for more discipline. That it's not just so like, let's just print just because.
Yeah. The more I think about it, the more I feel like Bitcoin has to be backed by something, and I think that's why maybe gold might be the way it could be backed, something of value, because at the end of the day, like, I don't know, it's just Bitcoin. There's no value versus something that can be backed up by it. I feel
Or if
like
it has a
people will have
limited
more
supply,
trust.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
But that's only Bitcoin. If you talk about Doge and all Shiba, it's unlimited supply.
yeah,
So
exactly.
there's a difference if you really get into
There
it.
is. And then the last point to the benefit is the benefit of basically the smart contracts. That with smart contracts we won't get too much in depth, but it's gonna help. Like for example, if you're looking to buy a home right now, you have so many fees, so many people you have to go through. You have to the home
Background.
inspection, the background, the closing costs, the escrow fees, all these I call them the dumb fees basically, and then that makes your home purchase a lot more expensive, and that's why people can't really get into homes. Not necessarily because they can't afford the monthly payment, they just can't afford the
All the
initial
fees.
down payment, the
Yeah.
fees, the closing fee, all of that. Because they're almost paying the same in rent, but the initial is like what's really is hard for people.
Yeah.
Imagine you're able to no more real estate agents, no more all of that.
Yeah,
the banks and all that. And it's
it's
just you and the seller, right?
Yeah, and it's more trusted because there's no influence. There's no middleman trying to get an extra dollar here and there.
Commission, yeah.
It's like whether or not are you approved, and the blockchain can see all your history, all your past, and then compare it to what you're trying to get and be like, approved, not approved,
Mm-hmm.
done
Boom,
instantly.
Like and instead of 30 days escrow, it'd be like 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are the benefits, potential, not guaranteed. Keep in mind, I said potential.
Like we see right now, it's going through a testing, which I think
Yeah.
is very important to go through this testing moment
It has
because
to.
what Celsius, Terra, all this said, like, we're guaranteed that you put your money here and you're going to get X amount percentage. And now they're like, zero.
Zero or negative.
Yeah. So they're getting tested right now.
Yeah, and it's unless it's backed by something, but it's just as of now, it's just a potential benefit. Now let's talk about the negatives, the potential risks with digital currencies, because with everything there's risk in everything. The first one is this thing called bank disintermediation. Disintermediation. It's a long word. What does that mean, right? So it means you cut the middleman from the distribution and you sell directly to the customer. So it's kind of like what we said about, when you buy a home, you cut all those people off. That could be a risk that can hurt the economy in different ways, because imagine all those people lose jobs, laid off. Imagine even banks, all these banks that we have, Ally Bank, all these other online banks and stuff. Bank of America, imagine all that just disappeared because people don't need them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there is a risk there too as well. There's a risk,
But let me ask you, how many times do you go to the bank in a month?
Just for workshop, just to meet with people. But yeah, it's because it's so easy. You could do everything on your phone.
So I feel like our generation and the next generation is gonna be less and
Less,
less, because you could just do everything.
Eventually, which is with one of the banks that we work with, they're saying less and less. It's gonna be people coming for transactions. If anything, a bank, it's more like business for meetings, to converse, a community, develop relationships. Not really bank deposits, because if you're still doing bank deposits in person, eventually you're gonna.
I understand
4%.
there's some businesses that still get cash.
Yeah.
They have to go deposited.
Mm-hmm.
Especially handymen. A lot of them I know you just get cash. So they still have to go directly.
Or even like the Chick-fil-A's, the McDonald's, and all that. People
they still
cash.
get cash.
At the end of the day, they have to go deposit it. So yeah, so there's a risk there. We don't know what could happen. The second one is the loss of privacy. So a benefit is that everything's out there. Everyone knows everything, right? Because it's public information. But then it can also be a con because now it's a loss of privacy. Not only the government knows, but he said Big Brother is watching, because there's a book about that, about 1941 or whatever. But like it's a loss of privacy.
But to be honest, this little guy here knows everything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So there is like a good what do we call it? I understand that point.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're gonna lose, but this guy literally tracks everything. As soon as I'm talking about, I need to buy X, Y, and Z, go on Instagram, boom, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, definitely
But when it comes to money, there is a point to it, and there are blockchains that are trying to do it where you just get a specific ID, kind of like your social security, your ID card,
not your name,
not your name. That is not like Joshua bought, this amount. Your girlfriend can see, be like, what? Why are you buying all this stuff? Money? Or your wife, why are you spending on all this stuff? But more like in an ID. Yeah. So I could see that being implemented.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want your neighbor to know how much you have, or your uncles, or your suegra,
Yeah, or just anyone in general. It would be like, yo, this guy down the block has X amount of money.
Go rob him.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so definitely there's a potential risk there. So they have to figure something out. Cool.
Yeah.
Number 3, the third one is transactional security. We've seen that there's been so many scams with even
everyone gets scammed with crypto.
Everyone, right?
I get a message every week.
Yeah.
Every week.
So that's another issue. It's like if the US were to adopt a CBDC, central bank digital currency, where they say screw Bitcoin, screw everything else, we're gonna make our own, which most likely they're probably gonna do that.
He already said it.
They already said, yeah.
But he said that we're not gonna be the first ones, because there's no point to rush to the first one. Let everyone else kind of figure it out, and then we'll see which one works the best.
Make the best one.
So I think maybe that's why he's kind of looking at Bitcoin, because Gary Gensler said that's the only one that he actually trusts, and everything else is a security. So
it is, because Bitcoin's the only one that's in a way not decentralized. Although there's a lot of people that own it, that they kind of mess with the price, but at the end of the day, it is decentralized.
It is the most decentralized, because at the end of the day, no one really holds the power. You know, it's like it has to be a whole network of people that can really do. All the other ones have we seen, like Terra and who knows what, Celsius. They can just take your money and boom, run.
Yeah. And that's the fourth one. This can cause an open invitation for government to do social engineering, meaning they force things. They automatically, if everything is digital, one day they be like, you shut everything down. We control your money. You can only spend it. You can only buy this much and close this month. You're gonna buy this.
Kind of like a credit score.
Yeah, like what they do in China, right?
Yeah. Your social credit card.
Social engineering. So that's another risk. That's like you give government too much power.
That's why I believe, if kind of like the Fed, even though technically it is part of the government, but technically it isn't.
It's its own entity.
It's its own entity, but it does respond, or does have to the president, anyone in government can be like, hey, don't do that. And that's where Bitcoin, I think the one that is the most trusted can be something like that, where it has no influence like that, because that is kind of scary.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is scary. So
you ate too much Chick-fil-A. We're cutting it off. You go to Chick-fil-A, you're like, sorry, you already had Chick-fil-A 3 times this week.
No more Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, we're trying to keep you healthy, which I get it, but I want Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, so there's always risks, with the new technology, and I'm pretty sure they said the same thing with the internet. A lot of risks involved, which, but people adapt to as well. So next thing I want to talk about is a topic that probably everyone wants to talk about, wants to know more about, and it's very insightful. Is the title was The Impact of Debt on the Growth in the Economy. But what I'm going to be talking about is basically what is going on right now with the economy, and what could happen in the next couple months, years, and etc. So the person that was talking, he was a person that 7 years ago, he started an investment firm. He's I guess
2015 then?
Somewhere around there, like 7 or 10 years ago, he said. I think 7. So he has his own investment firm, like he's a CFP, so Certified Financial Planner.
Mm-hmm.
And he manages right now, 7 years later, 3.5, not million, but $1 billion. So from my estimates, if he charges 1% management fee, he makes $350 million a year, right? But 35 million. But what was I going to say? Oh,
He has a lot of money.
he makes a lot of money, right? So he's someone that he knows. He studies the
And
market.
he's trusted by a lot.
He's
you know?
trusted by very wealthy people. Just so you can have a background. It's not some random professor that
He's
studies
not- yeah.
economics and that's it. He has no experience. No. This person, he knows what he's doing. He has an investment firm. People trust him with a lot of money. So he was talking about the current state of the economy. And he says the issues that we face in our economy are not presidential. It's because since the last financial crisis, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, what do we see? Two
Print.
Republicans and two Democrats. So he's like, okay, if I get it if it was 4 Democrats in a row, but it's like 2 and 2. So it's like,
It's pretty even.
Is it a presidential issue? No. He's
No.
like, this is an American voter issue that we have become very comfortable with allowing the government to grow in size, which means growing in our spending, which means our deficit, what we owe. You compare what we owed during Bush all the way to now is in the trillions.
Yeah.
So he was saying, Republican, Democrat or not, it's a voter
both.
issue.
Yeah, it's both.
The American
yeah.
voters are not holding accountable the government and allowing it to keep growing and growing, which equals more spending and spending.
Well, it's because it's like candy. It feels really good to have that extra money. You know, you go and spend it, but then we're living in a time that we're paying that price for all that easy money that we got for all those years. Because even if you look at the S&P 500 since 2008, it's just straight line. It's like they say crypto goes up to the moon. Like the S&P since 2008 has just straight up.
It's had its dips, but it's
Barely.
mostly been rips. Yeah, I know.
You
I know.
buy the dip. That's where that phrase came really famous. Just buy the dip because
buy the
you
dip.
buy it, it's gonna go up.
It's gonna go up. Yeah. So yeah, and the problem right now that we face is interest rates from the Federal Reserve in general have been very low for years. Ever since 2008, they've been very low. Historically, they've been very low, and houses have gone up in value for years. Right. The next recession is coming, or are we already in it? That's the question. Are we already in it, or is the recession up?
Have we entered the second quarter already? Because it's 2 quarters of
We
negative
haven't.
growth.
So recently, this is off topic, but not really. The Atlanta, I think it's the Atlanta Federal Reserve. They predicted that we are going to be. They forecast that we're going to be negative 1% GDP, which is, if true, means we already are in a recession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we are. If I had to take a guess, I would have to say yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we are. I'm pretty sure we are too. So he said during the COVID recession, we expected a drop like what happened in 2008. So the COVID recession was when COVID first hit. What happened? Everything
2020.
went boom. Right, in 2020.
And it
like
did.
This,
It did drop.
drop a lot. But then what happened? For just what, a couple weeks, a couple months at most? Printing money. And here's the thing, the Federal Reserve lowered rates to 0, not 1, not 2, 0%, not for 1 month. But
Easy
for
money.
So here's what they did. They lowered interest rates to 0% for 2 years, right? They bought $40 billion of MBS, mortgage-backed securities, for 2 years. They left the rates at 0% for 2 years. And 30-year mortgages were at about 2.9% for 2 years. We are in a very unstable economy because of that.
And it's also not our country only, but every country did the same, and some did more.
Well, they follow what we do.
Yeah.
They follow what we do. And the problem between the difference between 2008 and now is like after they they raise interest rates and all that, it started going down. That's when the housing and all that started going down. The pain came in, but we've been raising interest rates. Houses still keep going up.
Well, that's because there's a different factor there. Now the supply of homes is very low from the demand. So that's why it's different. And that's why people always argue, is there not going to be a crash? It's so hard to tell. It's so different, the market, than in 2008.
Yeah. The guy, he showed us a graph. It said like in 2008 when they started raising interest rates and all that, it went down. Everything started going downhill. Yeah, everything. Stock market, houses, and everything. But this time, as they're starting to do, and it was back in January, February, it started raising interest rates. He says since the last 2 years, since they've been raising, since the last 2 years, they didn't raise interest rates. They left it at 0. So we had an opposite effect. It went up. So the COVID recession, instead of making everything go down, it went up even more than from before, right? The house prices, stock market, everything. So he's like, we are in a very unstable. It's very different because of specifically too, because the interest rates were 0%, and because the Federal Reserve, what they call quantitative easing and all that, they were buying mortgage-backed securities. That's why house values went up so much, because they bought mortgage-backed securities.
Yeah, and people had a lot of money, even though they weren't working, it was a need because they forced us to stay at home. So I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But when they gave us, and also they didn't just give us, because I think the checks were only like 10% of what really went. Like a lot of went to like banks, and they really got the money, and big institutions. But they gave us too much money, which what do Americans do? Consume. So they went right to consuming when the market wasn't prepared, didn't have the stuff. So everything went up in value.
And that's good you say consume. He was saying that's another issue that he's like, instead of consuming, they should have pushed people to invest and to save. Because here's the thing that he said, the analogy is, we need investment to drive up productivity, and we cannot have investment without better savings. The only way you invest something is if you saved $1, you didn't spend it. And when we have such huge debts in the government, right? We have such a huge debt. When there's less savings, that means there's less investment. When there's less investment, that means there's less productivity. When there's less productivity, at the end, it means less growth, economic growth. So it's just like you're biting the hand that's feeding you, is the analogy he was saying. But there's just so many stuff at work, honestly. And he even was talking about how in the last, 10, 15 years, there has been a less demand in borrowing of money. And when you borrow less money, it's been collapsing. It's on a downhill spine.
And what do you mean by borrow? Like loans, or
in general, just borrowing money? Because when you borrow money, when I go to the bank and borrow for $5,000 for my business, what do you do when you borrow money? You're creating new money, because that money didn't exist.
Gotcha.
So when you borrow money from the bank, you're creating new money. When you create new money, that helps the concept of the money velocity, how many times money is churned or switched from one person. But if that starts going down, that affects also growth. And there's just a lot of stuff, that's affecting the economy. And
a lot of chain and reactions. Like everything is all tied in.
Yes. And it was funny. He said, so what can we do? What can we do as a government, as economy, as people? Because maybe there's some stuff you heard and you're like, oh man, this is a little overwhelming. Maybe it's a little scary. He's like, it's good that, if it does happen, that we're in a stable economy, we see a dip and just everything overall. It won't be good for people that, there might be people that lose jobs, et cetera, but it's a healthy dip that we need in order to stabilize the economy, or else it's just up in the air and we're just waiting for something to fall.
It's a reset. It's kind of like you can eat pizza every day or eat your favorite food, but eventually you're going to look yourself in the mirror and be like, oh, shit.
You're going to have a heart attack and you're like, oh, shoot, I got to change my diet.
Yeah. So it's like, what are you going to do in that moment? Are you going to continue doing the same, or are you going to fix it? And fixing it is not as easy as eating. You have to work out. You got to change your diet. You got to get more discipline, which is necessary, because when you come out from that transition, you can become a lot better.
Yeah, it's important. Sometimes we need, to.
But it does suck, because like I'm even thinking, like, how there's so many jobs right now because they need all these supplies to hit the stores or whatever. What happens, like I was telling you the other day, how Walmart and Target are like, hey, if you have a return, just keep it. We'll pay you, because they have too much, and not everything. So don't run to Target right now. But like certain items, they just have way too much, and they're just
a lot of jobs that were created out of this whole mess. They're going to be useless eventually.
Or small businesses too that I think of that were in need during COVID, but maybe right now, like, we don't need that no more. Yeah, and that's going to hurt a lot of people.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And so he said, what can we do? Number one is live within our means.
Oh, yeah.
That's the most important thing. Number one, live within our means. Don't go all crazy.
And to be honest, that's like the people that I listened to on podcasts as soon as in 2020 started printing, I used that money that I got from, because I was unemployed. We lost our business, and I just paid off all my debt. That's the first thing I did, because everyone kept saying, if they keep printing like this is not good. This is not good. This is inflation. Like, you can't. Why are Yeezys so popular? Because there's a limited supply. There's not like a billion Yeezys or whatever. There's only we only have 100 of them. Or like those cars that you like. There's only 100 of those cars. So they're worth $1 million.
Limited supply.
Yep. But and as soon as they printed too much money in the system, that's where we are now.
Yeah, and we force people people that didn't want to work, forced their employees to raise the salaries, which raises the cost of stuff, which raises everything, right?
Everything.
So, chain reaction. So live within your means. The second thing is, he made a good point that we shouldn't rely on the Federal Reserve to be it should be the lender of last resort. The Federal Reserve should be something of last resort. It shouldn't be something like, all right, let's pull up the printers and start printing that money. Print that money, buy those mortgage-backed securities, do all that, right?
Yeah.
You're just hiding the issue.
Yeah, because they're also, the beauty of capitalism is the best will survive. The company that is doing something good is going to be sustainable. But right now what happens is like, bail me out. Just bail me out. Like the airlines, which is really sad. They bail them out and then they fired. It's just like, that should not be happening.
And now we're starting to see an effect where so many flights are being canceled because pilots don't want to fly, attendants don't want to work.
Yeah, and what happens is that company becomes dependent on the government. And they're going to do whatever it takes to make the government always be on their goody list, because why? They're going to bail them out. Even though they know they might not, they're not focusing on like making sure like they're doing the best job. They're like, I just want to get bailed out. And that's a lot of companies that are around. They call them zombie companies that aren't really valued. They're overvalued than they should be.
Yeah, it's so important that we understand, the chain reaction of all these things, like Junior was mentioning. Like now, if you want to fly, it's expensive.
Yeah.
And you might get your flight
And you
canceled.
had a lot of delays, didn't you, recently? Or just a lot of issues?
Surprisingly, we didn't, but a lot of people around us did. Like other flights canceled, delays, et cetera, et cetera. Wow. We had already bought the tickets a long time ago, and they already had layovers. It sucks. I don't like when you have to go land somewhere else. It's not straight to the point, but whatever. It was all paid for through an organization that covered all our costs, so I'm not complaining. So the next thing he said is we need a Congress that does its job.
And you also
Democrat,
put
Republican,
LOL.
I put lol because we all laughed after he said that.
Yeah, because like you pointed, there's been 4 presidents,
Yeah.
and they've all done the same thing.
2 Democrat, 2 Republicans. At the end of the day,
it's not a right versus left.
No.
Yeah.
It's an American voter issue.
It's exactly what we teach at Avanza Latino. It's a spending and budgeting issue.
Yep. It really is.
More than anything. You can make more money. You could be, I don't know. But at the end of the day, if you don't control your finance and get disciplined in that, you could be killing it for a couple of years, but then eventually, boom.
Yeah, it's super important. And then the last thing he said is a strong self-government, like in general, people. Because if we are able to govern ourselves better in things that maybe we're putting too much responsibility in our government, that would create less costs.
Yeah.
Because if nonprofits are able to cover issues that maybe not so much the government knows how to handle or social enterprise, then we're able to fix those issues and we don't have to rely on the government, right? Like a perfect example is homelessness in LA County. Once that gets resolved, that's one huge chunk of our budget. Gone because it's already resolved, and there's maybe the nonprofits handle it, the corporate America puts a percentage of their profit into that, whatever, right? We handle the issue.
Yeah.
And another thing, I didn't write it here in the notes, but he talked about this too. I didn't know this, but so very interesting. Our population has been at decline, and fertility rate has been in the decline.
Elon has been talking about this too.
Exactly. He said this is one thing he agrees with Elon Musk. Yeah, like we've been in decline extremely. The average right now is 1.7 birth.
Do you have a kid?
I don't.
I don't have a kid.
So that puts more pressure on another person that doesn't have a kid. Well, we're not women though.
Yeah.
But yeah, so woman per birth 1.7, and when it was during, like, for example, even the baby boomers and all of that, 3.5 something like that. So he says that is not good because population growth equals economic growth. I know there's some people, maybe they're environmentalists, that say no, more people, it means more pollution.
Less, yeah.
But more people means more innovation to fix
More
those pollution
ideas.
issues, right?
Yeah.
And more economic growth. So he said he strongly believes that we need to fix our immigration issues because he thinks we should be allowing more people in, because the only reason why it's at 1.7, if you were to remove all the immigrants in the U.S., it'd be a lot lower. It'd be like 1, or it'd be like really, really bad. 1.2 or something like that. So he's like, we should fix that. Because if we're able to fix that and we're able to find a way that works, not only would in just livelihoods of people's lives would be just better, they don't have to fear of deportation, but our economy would grow. Because right now, another country that's facing that issue is China. they are having really bad issues with fertility because for years they forced the people, you can only have one kid.
One child policy.
And for many years, people still think that they're still forcing it. No, they're not forcing it. They want people to have kids, but people just got so used to that. It's part of their culture. They don't have a lot of kids anymore.
Yeah, and it's pretty crazy to think about that because like our grandparents,
10
I'm pretty
kids.
sure at least, if not more. So it's like, and now us, like I'm in my 30s and I have 0 kids.
You speak to most of your friends. Do they want 5 kids?
No, 1.
1, 2.
Yeah, 2 max, and that's if, because it's
Money.
expensive. It's expensive.
Expensive.
And also because, like me, they focus so much on, building a business, on their careers.
It's culture. It's everything.
It's culture. It's just everything in culture says don't have kids, enjoy your life, which I understand. But also, like, there's a con, which is like, hey, we're not going to have that much kids or the population is going to shrink, which is not good.
Yeah, it's
crazy. Who's going to support, when we get older, if we have less people, to support us?
Yeah, because all those people that retire, for example, the baby boomers, when they retire, they sell their homes, they start using their investments from the Roth IRAs and all that. It's a chain reaction.
Yeah,
yeah. Population is a huge. I never thought about that. I'm like, oh wow, that's so important.
So make a baby maybe sometime this week.
Yeah, if you want to contribute to our economic growth, start having kids right now. All right.
Hopefully you get married though.
That's what this guy said. He said after he realized that, he's like, I had 2 kids, I had a 3rd one because I wanted to help. I wanted to contribute.
That's hilarious.
I'd be hypocritical talking about this and only have one or 2 kids.
Well, in any second we're gonna have another kid, Darima. Yeah, so she's helping. She's helping with
We're about
Alex.
to be uncles. Yeah, but Alex, I mean, he has to multiply times 3. All right. 3 meaning Alex, Alexis, and Alexandria, whatever,
Yeah.
The last thing I want to talk about briefly, the workshop that we talked about is tech, freedom, and the future of work. What does that look like? We're not going to talk too much in depth because now we talked a lot of stuff. It might be a little overwhelming maybe for some of you. But what I do want to mention, one thing that this professor, this expert in the field was talking about is that when you invent the ship, you also invent the shipwreck. When you invent the car, you also invent the car wreck. Innovation on its own carries downsides. What do I mean by this? When you create a new invention, a new idea, whatever, working from home, electric vehicles, self-driving,
planes,
what new problems are created when you solve this one? It always happens. You solve one problem, you create a new, you solve a problem, you create a new problem, right? And who is being left behind because of this innovation are 2 important questions that we got to ask as we start entering this new world, remote work, autonomous AI, all of that.
Yeah, because just like the internet, and like I want to talk back about Amazon is a lot of people complain about Amazon because they stole the mom and pop store, and I used to believe that until I listened to this podcast that was talking about, like, I know a lot of people, they always bring this, like, Amazon is destroying the mom and pop stores, but if you look on their website, they actually support a lot of online stores, and that's huge for Amazon. And I didn't think about that, but I'm like, that's true. How many people do you see online that has a store on Amazon is killing it? And that was impossible like 20 years ago.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's opened the world of e-commerce.
Yeah, so there you go. There is a negative where the local mom and pop store might be affected, but then it does open up, I don't know, 10, 20 other stores, e-commerce all over the world, or
that don't need a storefront. They just do it all virtually.
Yeah. So there are pros and cons, just like you said.
And there's this thing he said, it's called the Amara's Law, is that we tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run, but we underestimate the effect in the long run, which is true. We think it's going to change everything in the short run, but then we forget about it in the long run. We underestimate how it can affect us in our lives.
That's what's going on in crypto right now. That's a perfect sentence for crypto.
Yep.
Yeah, because
exactly.
Everyone's... I fell into that train. I got super excited, but at the end of the day, it is a good, like you said, blockchain technology is really good. But like you said, with banks, it's probably going to make a lot of people lose their jobs, or people that do like sell homes. A lot of them are just going to lose their jobs if you no longer need that middle person. So, but there is a pro. You can buy stuff. You can trust more transactions. So yeah, there's pros and cons.
And with innovation, it's going to shed light into, there's going to be a lot of those jobs that are going to be lost, in which this guy he was talking about, he called them BS jobs. He said the actual full word, like bull, you know what? jobs, and then at the end he had
Just kidding.
he had a time for question and answers, and one of the guys asked, "Hey, what do I do if I have one of those BS jobs?"
What kind of job did he have?
I don't know, but he's like, quit before it happens. Quit.
And a lot of people are, just because, like, I was watching this video how they're doing in Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks, they're testing out this new machine that does all this coffee, and it costs like, I don't know, $200,000,
Oh.
but it generates every week $10,000. And it works 24 hours a day.
No breaks.
No breaks. It also never does vacation, never does pay leave, nothing. And yes, that is going to hurt a lot of people, but it's going to drop the cost of coffee or whatever they're doing.
But it will create new jobs.
Yep.
Someone that maintains that robot.
Or you see this and be like, how can I make my own business that has these little robot machines?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it creates new jobs, many new jobs, but you lose a lot of current jobs as well. So we talked a lot today about, technology, the future of work. We talked about the economy, where we're at right now. And at the end of the day, no one knows what's going to happen with the economy. No one really knows. Someone that tells you they know, they don't. No one knows. It all depends on the policies that what the president does, what the Federal Reserve does, what people react, how they react to finally when we've seen the news, we are officially in a recession. Do they pull out their money? Do they invest more? There's so much stuff that we don't know.
Yeah, and that's why the most important thing is always save and live below your means. It's even though, the society, life, friends, family put a lot of pressure and like, hey, look at me. And then you feel that pressure like, how come I don't have that stuff? Oh, I need that stuff. And sometimes you got to ask yourself, is this a need or a want? And I don't know if we mentioned this before, but before you ever buy anything, put it in your cart, sit on it for a couple of days, if not a week, and then you'll realize whether or not that was a need or a want. And I've saved so much money just by doing that. So much money.
Yeah, that's the best way to save. Yeah, and don't feel like, oh man, I have to save 100% of your income. You can still enjoy life. You just gotta have a balance. Have a balance. You can still go out with friends. You can do fun stuff. You can still travel. We tend to travel at least once a year.
I enjoyed it today.
But you could budget your vacation, right? Budget, like if I want to spend $3,000 in my next vacation, I got to budget a certain amount each month, right? Budgeting, it just will feel your life would be a lot less stress.
Yeah, because you used to work in a previous job where you gave out loans, and you were shocked because some of those people made good money, and
100,000 plus,
and you would be like, wait, why are you getting the loan for vacation?
$3,000 for $3,000.
Yeah, and it's like, wait, what are you doing? Like, you should have a lot of money saved up by now.
Yeah,
and it's the same with our government. It's
Yeah.
like it's the same thing. It's like they're
Don't
still
feel bad.
going to the Fed and asking for a loan, and like, wait, but why? Like, you should be budgeting. It's like California is the 5th largest economy in the world. It's like, how can we have all these homeless issues? How can we have potholes everywhere? How can we have like all this stuff? And it's just like, we need to do better. First we got to hold ourselves responsible, and then we could hold the people in office responsible. But I think our generation and the generation younger than us is going to be a lot more savvier because they're all into investing. They all understand the terminology that we're saying a lot more versus our parents. Like, it just goes above their head.
Yeah, I know some people my age that have financial advisors. They go and speak to financial advisors my age.
Yeah.
It's unheard of if you talk to a millennial or the one, I forgot the generation before them. Like they didn't have financial advisors at 20 years old, 25 years old.
I've never heard of these terms until I was like 23, 22 probably. Like, I never heard of like investing, Roth IRA, dollar cost average, none of that, ever.
No, I literally have friends I know, like, I just had money I saved and I just want to see how I can invest it or do more with it.
And also, like how we were talking about technology, there weren't apps on your phone like Robinhood that you could easily open up an account in 5 minutes and start investing or start opening your Roth IRA. That's also the beauty of technology. It makes things easier, which also makes your life better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at the end of the day, like we said, technology is great. It's going to be innovation that's going to change everything, every aspect that, Amazon changed every aspect.
Yeah.
Now we've become a very impatient consumer that we need things the next day or even this very day. I've had only one thing to happen the next hour, right? But at the end of the day, innovation is good. We just got to make sure that we're not leaving anyone behind. And if they are, how can we help them? How can we teach them? That's how we do what we do here today, that we can inform you guys of what's possibly going to come, the future of work, the economy and all that. So you can prepare yourself, so you can be ready. Like, okay, maybe it's hard for you to understand these things, but you show these to your kids so they're prepared and they help you guys out as well. So hopefully you encourage your kids to watch, us here at Avance Latino when we talk about these important topics. And I'm just gonna leave off with that. Hopefully, you learn something, even if it's just one point that really stuck out to you. Let us know in the comment section. Share with your friends and family. This I guess you would say
Happy
almost like
4th
a
of July.
podcast, right? Happy 4th of July. We're celebrating.
We're in a new set. We're doing this.
Yep.
I feel like we flow a little better this way.
Yeah, it's better. Definitely it's better, because when we would do it at the computer, we'd be like,
what?
Wait.
Yeah, I don't.
I
like
can't
that.
hear you. I can't hear you.
Wait,
Yeah.
what? Yeah.
Yeah, so this is definitely better. So we're trying to always improve the way that we get our message across to all of you guys watching. So be sure to share this video with your friends and family if you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, or whatever it is you're watching us. And you have a great rest of your day. Take care, everyone. My name is Josh Rincon. I am the program director here at Avance Latino. And we got Carlos Rincon. He is the creative director at Avance Latino. Unofficial title. But thank you and take care, everyone.